Hmm, where's everybody at? Oh, hello everybody. My name is Sir Ozzy, and today we are going to be discussing one of the most interesting moments in all of Fire and Blood. Spoiler warnings for those who don't want the show to get spoiled in the upcoming seasons. The peasant takeover of King's Landing. It all truly started when Rhaenyra Targaryen fled the capital after the death of her son Joffrey Valerion and the destruction of the Dragon Pit in 130 AC. The opportunity was first seized by Sir Perkin the Flea, who took Aegon's High Hill with his gutter knights from Sir Garth the Harelip, who had been captain of the Gold Cloaks on Dragonstone. Sir Garth could have held the Red Keep with his men, who outnumbered the Fleas 10-1, but with morale low and no one wanting to fight, the Harelip decided to trust the mercy of his foe and open the gates of the castle. Immediately, Sir Perkin had Garth the Harelip brought before him and beheaded. So, yeah, don't trust people who say they're going to be your friend when they literally have a sword in their hand. Anyways, and also Lady Massaria, the White Worm, who is very interesting in the show, was caught trying to flee and then was proceeded to be whipped through the streets of King's Landing from the Red Keep all the way to the Gate of the Gods. Now, here's a quote. She only made it half that distance, dying on the cobblestone with hardly a patch of her pale white skin left on her back. Oof. Yeah, Cersei had it pretty easy, I'm not even gonna lie to any of you fine people. Then Sir Perkin freed every single person in the dungeons below the castle, including Grand Maester Orwyle, Lord Corlys Valerion, and even deep in the Black Sails, they found King Aegon's former Master of Coin, Sir Tywin Lannister, who was arrested and taken down and tortured by Rhaenyra Targaryen. But when they found him, he was blinded, had his fingernails and toenails removed. They cut off his ears. Oh, and they cut off his manhood. Yeah, Lannisters have a rough time with getting their appendages unconsensually removed. So did Theon. Anyways, Sir Perkin the Flea then had his squire mount the Iron Throne, Trystane. The witnesses for this amazing historical event included all those from the dungeons, and also the Queen Mother, Alicent Hightower, and Larys Strong of Clubfoot, who had emerged from the darkness like Batman to quote-unquote support their new king. But atop the hill of Rhaenys, in the dragon pit, the shepherd who had guided thousands into killing 5 adult dragons, and I think a couple little ones, uh, ruled not as a king, but instead as a simple son of the Seven. The heads of the 5 dragons had been set up on posts at the entrance of the ruins of the dragon pit, and every night he would come out and preach to thousands who came to listen. But since the dragons in the capital were dead, he turned his preaching against the rich and the wealthy. Cough, cough. Telling his followers to release themselves of their worldly possessions and only wear somewhat unstylish robes. But apparently, this idea was way worse than marching to your death and to be set afire by dragons. So, night after night, less and less people came to listen to the shepherd. And finally, the last introduction, also kind of my favorite, Gaiman Palehair's kingdom atop Visenia's hill. A 4-year-old who had better ideas in this kingdom than any actual king in the entire history of A Song of Ice and Fire. Fire and Blood states that his entire court was made up of women of the night, mummers and thieves, whilst gangs of ruffians, sellswords, and drunkards defend his rule. And why does the book say he was a terrible king? Well, his terrible policies, of course. Policies such as, men and women should be equal in the matter of inheritance. Yeah. That poor people be given bread and beer in times of famine. What a terrible idea. Or that men who had fought in battles and lost limbs had to be housed and fed by whatever lord they fought for. Oh, and another terrible idea of his was that men who beat their wives should also be beaten in turn. Yeah, terrible ideas like that. Back on Aegon's High Hill, Trystane had a couple of decrees himself, including repealing Queen Rhaenyra's tax policies and giving money from the treasury to his followers. good move. He raised 60 of his gutter knights to nobility, and gave free bread and beer to the poor and needy. Also, he allowed the poor to hunt in the king's wood outside of the city for animals, except, I think, deer and boar. But slowly, the quote-unquote actual ruler of Aegon's Hill, or the Red Keep, Sir Perkins the Flea, began bringing surviving gold cloaks from the riots and the fall of the Dragon Pit to their cause, and with all his men he retook the Dragon Gate, the King's Gate, and the Lion Gate. As the shepherd's flock left him behind, power grew at the Red Keep, proving the image of power is just as important as the ruler themselves. The capital of the Seven Kingdoms stayed like this for about a full month until an army appeared outside of King's Landing. Whose army? Why, Lord Boros Baratheon's army. He marched in the city with 600 knights and 4,000 soldiers. And when the shepherd saw them coming, he commanded his followers to stop Boros from entering the city. But there was no longer thousands that listened to him, only hundreds, and even fewer obeyed. Upon the Red Keep, Larys Strong stood next to the King Trystane, telling him that there was no hope to fight such a host, and that the king should send him to treat with Baratheon. Trystane accepted, and sent the clubfoot across the city to treat. I wonder how that walk went for him. Accompanied by Grand Maester Orwyle and Alicent Hightower. The clubfoot had arranged for Sir Perkin the Flea to be pardoned, and his gutter knights, except for King Trystane. Also, they agreed to pardon Lord Corlys Velaryon of his crimes, because his fleet blocked Blackwater Bay, and King Aegon II was on Dragonstone, and his dragon was dead, so he couldn't fly to the capital, so they had to clear it. And they couldn't do that without Corlys Velaryon. The host entered the city without obstacle. The gates of the city were unmanned, and the streets and courtyards were empty, save for the dead bodies. Boros Baratheon walked up the steps of the Red Keep and watched as the tattered banners of King Trystane fell, and the banners of King Aegon II were raised in their stead. I can't wait to see that in the show. It'll be pretty cool if they do it, because it's so off. Anyways, after the arrest of Trystane, the night was spent in quiet celebration within the Red Keep. The next day, he rode against Vicinius Hill and King Gaemon Palehair, the 5-year-old, or he had just turned 5 2 days before, and now he was being marched down by 3 columns of knights, who shackled him and took him as a prisoner back to the castle. Finally, the shepherd's turn came the next night, but forewarned by the taking of the boy king, he called his followers to protect him once again. But less than 300 showed up, and many fled the assault as it began. Lord Boros led knights up the hill on the western side, while Sir Perkins the Flea and his gutter knights climbed the steeper southern slope from Flea Bottom. Both groups, pushing through the rubble of the Dragon Pit, found the shepherd hiding next to the decayed heads of the dragons that the people of King's Landing slew. He was then taken back to the Red Keep in chains. Once again, peace returned to King's Landing, quote-unquote peace. Curfews were set, and the city watch was reformed under the command of Sir Perkins the Flea. Lord Boros commanded the battlements and gates of the city, along with his Stormlanders. Eventually, King Aegon II had returned to King's Landing with the help of Corlys Velaryon's now legitimized bastard son, Alan Velaryon. It was far from an arousing return, as the king could have hoped. The streets were bare as he was carried through the city in a litter, which is like a box with 4 dudes holding it up. Very cool. I wish I could walk around in a litter. I'd be a loser. Slowly, he was taken to the Red Keep and was too weak to climb the Iron Throne, so they made him a wooden cushioned chair for him to sit in at the base of the throne instead. And they threw a blanket over his legs because he's like super crippled now. The squire that Sir Perkin the Flea had made king of the Red Keep knelt before Aegon first, and he was sentenced to die for high treason. That's usually what happens. He did not plead nor beg for mercy, but he did ask that he could become a knight before his death. King Aegon granted him his wish. He then was knighted, and had his head chopped off by Sir Alfred Broome. The 5-year-old boy king, Gaiman Palehair, was spared death on account of his age, but his mother was hanged, along with 27 other individuals of the boy's court. The last face to see the king's judgment was the shepherd himself. He did not beg for mercy, and he did not admit to treason. All he said to King Aegon was, "We shall meet in hell before this year is done." Which is really, really interesting if you know where the story goes, because it gives him a lot of credibility, or at least the shepherd gives the shepherd a lot of credibility. And maybe those other stories about him summoning the warrior from Black Mist, that sounds pretty familiar too, and cutting off the head of a dragon. That might not exactly just be some historical inaccuracy there. Anyways, Aegon then sentenced him and all his followers to be burned alive. And on the last day of the year of 130 AC, 241 followers of the shepherd were chained to poles along the cobblestone thoroughfare that ran eastward from Cobbler's Square up to the Dragon Pit. And the city's septs rang their bells to signal the end of the old year and the coming of the next. King Aegon proceeded along the street in his litter, whilst knights rode along his left and right side. Every post they passed was set afire, and so were the followers chained to them. And it continued like this all the way to the Dragon Pit. Oof. Where the shepherd himself was bound. Helped up by 2 of his king's guard, Aegon was guided to the pole and set the prophet afire with his own hand. And that was the end of the Moon of the Three Kings. And honestly, they had better ideas for the small folk than 99% of the kings who ever lived in this world. And King Aegon lived happily ever after. Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and if you have anything you would like to see in the future, leave a comment down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.